Hey everyone, welcome back to my Python programming series. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about conditional statements. So in Python, there are three main keywords to do these conditional statements. Three, I'm just going to go ahead and list them. The three are if, elif, and else. Elif is kind of shorthand for writing else if, like you would see in other languages. Essentially, the way we can create one of these conditional statements is by saying if, and then you don't need these brackets, but I'm going to write it just for visual purposes. And then inside here, we will put a conditional statement. So if something is true, then do this, or if something is false, do that. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick little example as to how we can quickly implement one of these conditional statements. So I've gone ahead and defined a variable called x, and I've set it equal to 5. And let's say we're writing a program to check if the variable x is greater than 5 or is less than 5. So we would write something like if x is greater than 5, then you put the colon at the end, and then you write your code that you want to execute if that statement holds true. If x is greater than 5, then let's say all we want to do is print x is greater than 5. That's all we want to do. And so now if we execute this code, we can see that nothing happens. And why does nothing happen? Well, it's because this conditional is never hit. So we get to this if statement and we check, okay, if x is greater than 5, then do something. But x is not greater than 5. So all Python does is it evaluates this conditional statement and says, nope, let's not go ahead and execute this code. And then it just continues running the code under it. But in this case, there's no code under it. So let's say we have the same code over here, except in this case, we want to check if x is actually equal to 5. And if it is, then we simply want to print x is 5. So the way we can do that is by saying elif x equals 5. So x is equal to 5. Then in this case, we want to print x is 5. And now if we run this code, we will see that x is 5 is actually printed. And again, the reason is we can trace this code to check. First, Python comes to here and it evaluates this conditional statement. It says, okay, if x is greater than 5, then let's do this code. But x is not greater than 5, so it doesn't do this code. And it goes on to the next statement, which is elif x equals 5. So is x equal to 5? In this case, yes, it is. So it enters this code block right here and does whatever the code is telling it to do. So in this case, it says print x is 5. So that's exactly what it does. It prints x is 5, and then the program terminates. Now, if we had that same code, and let's say we wanted to include another case where it was x was neither greater than 5 and it was not equal to 5, then we just wanted to print hello world. So in that case, what we would want to use is the else statement, meaning else is capture every other scenario that is not captured between these two conditional statements. So if x is not greater than 5 and x is not equal to 5, then every other value of x will fall into this else category, and then we said we simply want to print hello world. So again, if I were to execute this code right here, obviously this elif statement would execute, and it would execute this chunk of code right here printing x is 5 because x is still 5. But now if I were to change x to be minus 100 and then I were to run this code again right here, well, now we can see it's printing hello world because again, x is not greater than 5, x is not equal to 5, so it does the other block of code that is within this else statement. Now, an important thing to note is that if these statements are together, meaning you have an if, an elif, and an else, you can have multiple elifs, by the way. If they're together in like a chunk of code, then only one of them will get executed. I can go ahead and show you what I mean by that. Let's say we have x is equal to 10. And then we write something where if x is equal to 10, then let's print hello. We'll do elif x is greater than 1. We will want to print world. Else we would want to do print just hi or something like that. If I were to run this code, only the first statement will execute right here. So it will print hello, as you can see. But it's weird to see that this value of x actually fits multiple conditions. So it just so happens that if it's the first one and the second one as well. So as I mentioned to you before, only one of these statements will be executed. The statement that is hit first and is true first, only that block of code will be executed and the rest of the statements following will be ignored. In this case, you can see that this statement is true, so Python will execute this block of code. However, it's going to skip over this statement. Even though this statement is still true, it will not execute this block of code. So that's basically it for conditionals. There's not much to it. Pretty straightforward topic. You just simply write if and some condition, and then you can chain these with a couple of elifs and elses. But now I'm going to give you a pretty well-known problem called the FizzBuzz problem, and I'm going to kind of dumb it down to the point where you don't really need to know about functions or like return statements just yet. We're simply going to write the logic for the FizzBuzz problem. So here is the famous FizzBuzz problem, and it goes along the lines of this. If the number is divisible by 3, then we simply want to return fizz, the string fizz, instead of the number. If the number is divisible by 5, then we return buzz instead of the number. And if the number is divisible by both 3 and 5, then we want to return the string FizzBuzz instead of the number. By the way, these hashtags in front of the text just mean that it's a comment, so Python ignores them and doesn't cause any errors. So now I've gone ahead and set up a function that will help us solve this FizzBuzz problem. You don't quite need to know how functions work just yet, as I will be covering them in later lessons, but the important thing to note here is that this problem is asking us to return the string fizz if the number is divisible by 3, buzz if it's divisible by 5, and fizzbuzz if it's divisible by both 3 and 5. So we can see that this function is returning the return value. In this case, it's set to none as of now. However, it is our job to implement the logic that will change return value to be either fizz, buzz, fizzbuzz, or the number itself if it doesn't fall into any of these three categories. So let's go ahead and start implementing the logic. So the first step is to choose which condition we want to have as the if condition. And I say that for the if condition, we have this one right here. Because this condition is a lot stricter than this one, for example, and this one, this condition should be coming first, because there is a possibility that the number is divisible by 3 and 5. But if we include either one of these two before it, well, then this condition won't get hit. So we want to include the stricter condition first and then check the sort of weaker conditions after. So the way we check divisibility in Python is we say if the number that we're given is divisible by 3, this is the way we do it because we want to take the mod upon divisibility by 3. If that remainder is 0, well then we know that the number is perfectly divisible by 3. So if the number is divisible by 3 and the number mod 5 equals 0, meaning the remainder upon division by 5 is 0, in that case we want to set the return value equal to FizzBuzz. Now that we have this condition written out, let's go ahead and write these other two conditions. If the number is divisible by 3, well, in that case we want to set the return value equal to simply fizz, like it mentions in the problem right here. And the other case is that the number is divisible by 5. In that case, we want the return value to equal to buzz. Lastly, we do have the condition where the number is neither divisible by 3 and 5, neither divisible by 5, and neither divisible by 3. So we don't want to write, okay, if the number is not divisible by 3 and 5, not divisible by 3, not divisible by 5. Instead, to capture all those cases, we can simply use the else statement. So we're going to say else if none of these conditions are met, then the return value is simply going to be the number itself. So now we have a perfectly good and working function. We've implemented all the logic. Now let's just test to see if it's correct. Let's use FizzBuzz on 3 and let's see what it returns. And in this case, it returns fizz, which is correct because the number is only divisible by 3. If we check FizzBuzz with a value of 5, it should return just buzz. If we check FizzBuzz with a value of 15, it should return us both fizz and buzz, and it does. The last condition to check is if the number fails all of the conditions, the number itself should be returned. So if I pass something like 2, 2 is not divisible by 3, it's not divisible by 5, therefore this function should just return us 2, and it does. So that's it for this quick little tutorial on conditional statements. Basically, it's just those three keywords, if else. You can squash them together into one big block and basically write a bunch of logic there that will kind of make the meat of your function. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and have learned something from it. If the video has helped you out at all, please like and comment as to what I helped you out with. Like usual, if you guys are new to the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's greatly appreciated. And yeah, I will catch you guys in another video.